This is East Asia Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Ateli Edwards. Tonight's top stories. For the first time, the US openly criticizes China for aiming radars at Japanese jets, calling the move destabilizing, or reaffirming that Washington stands firmly behind Tokyo. Beijing lashes out at Taiwan's year-long ban on a popular Chinese app as undemocratic, even as user backlash rockets Rednote, also known as Xiaohongshu, to the top of the download charts. And South Korea's youth employment down for a 19th straight month, fanning concerns that long-term joblessness is becoming a structural crisis. And Cambodia has pulled its entire delegation out of the SEA Games, citing safety fears amid a border dispute with Thailand, a shock exit after yesterday's opening ceremony. Also on the bulletin, we'll explain why Hong Kong people living in the UK are making an appeal to the British government. And we delve into how Japan's tourism sector has been doing since the diplomatic spat erupted between Beijing and Tokyo. The United States weighing in on the latest flare-up between its ally Japan and China. For the first time, Washington has criticized Beijing for aiming radars at Japanese military aircraft during a training exercise last week. And the State Department saying that China's actions are not conducive to regional peace and stability, and that Washington's commitment to Tokyo is unwavering. Japan's chief cabinet secretary welcomed those comments, saying they point to a strong alliance. Now, the radar incident comes more than a month after Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi angered Beijing by saying that a Chinese attack on Taiwan could prompt a military response. Beijing and Tokyo are giving differing accounts of the run-in. China says the Japanese aircraft had repeatedly disrupted its Navy drills that were previously announced. But Japan says that the Chinese side did not give sufficient notice.
一方、空母遼寧の艦載機がどのような規模でどのような空域において訓練を行うのかという具体的な情報は自衛隊にもたらされておらず、また訓練を行う時間や場所の緯度・経度を示すノータム、航空情報もなく、船舶等に示す航行警報も事前に通報されておりません。その結果、危険の回避のために十分な情報がありませんでした。
Right, for more on this, CNA senior correspondent Han Yuguan joins us live now from Shanghai. Yuguan, firstly, has Beijing reacted to Washington's comments about the radar incident?
Well, this was raised at a regular Chinese foreign ministry briefing in Beijing. A foreign reporter asked for China's response to the American remarks that the radar illumination of Japanese jets by Chinese warplanes is detrimental to regional peace and stability. In his response, the spokesperson avoided slamming Washington directly. Instead, he reiterated China's stance that the training and exercise activities were in line with international law. He added that the operations were professional, standardized, safe, restrained, and beyond reproach. Now, if you recall, China's Navy had earlier already rubbished Japan's claims that Chinese jet fighters locked fire control radar onto Japanese jets. Its foreign ministry also earlier stated that it is common practice for carrier-based aircraft to activate such radar during flight training, calling it normal operations to ensure flight safety. Today, the very same spokesperson reiterated China's stance that Japan deliberately provoked first, then spread rumors and hyped things up. He called on the international community to distinguish right from wrong and not to be deceived by Japan. In particular, Japan's allies, he says, should not be manipulated by Japan. So while the US wasn't named, this last remark there was clearly directed at Washington, D.C. Oteli?
But also, China's Coast Guard says it's holding patrols in the waters around the disputed Diaoyu or Senkaku Islands. Does it represent an escalation with Japan?
Oteli, that's a sharp question, but I think it will be hard to give a definitive answer just yet. As far as we can tell, the Japanese from Japanese reports, China has near daily presence around those disputed islands. They continue a long-term pattern where China is using the Coast Guard vessels rather than Navy warships to press China's sovereignty claims. Some call it maritime coercion, while others see it as a move to press claims without risking an open war, soft pressure of sorts. In fact, a China Coast Guard ship formation passed through those same waters just 24 days ago. That's a few days after Prime Minister Takaichi made her remarks about a Taiwan contingency. Now, the Chinese Coast Guard then called it a rights enforcement patrol, adding that the passage was in accordance to international law. So, if the patrols are this regular, why is the Chinese Coast Guard announcing it ahead of time that it is holding patrols? Well, on one hand, we could see it as saber rattling from Beijing. On the other hand, this could also be Beijing's way of carrying out its business as usual while trying to forestall any accusations from the Japanese side that it sprung this on Tokyo unannounced, thus justifying a military reaction from Japan. In fact, even if all of this is true, it's still undeniable that either way, even business as usual patrols in these disputed waters in these times of heightened tensions could be fraught with danger. The fear, of course, is that any misstep, any misfiring could degenerate into a bigger conflict. Oteli?
Well, many thanks for that report. CNA senior correspondent Tanya Guan, live from Shanghai. Now, in other news, Taiwan President William Lai has also remarked on the radar incident, criticizing Chinese drills near Japan.
这是非常不恰当的行为，我国坚定的反对用暴力或胁迫的方式改变区域的和平稳定的单边行为。我们也呼吁中国应该要体现大国的责任。 和平无价，战争没有赢家。和平必须要各方来促成，中国同样有责任。
Now, it prompted a reaction from China's Taiwan Affairs Office, with spokesperson Chen Bianhua calling Mr. Lai's comments meaningless. Well, meantime, Taiwan's ban of Chinese social media app Rednote, also known as Xiaohongshu, has sparked pushback and public criticism, with some accusing the government of clamping down on internet freedom. Taiwan's Interior Ministry has ordered telecoms and internet providers to block access to Rednote for 1 year. Rising online fraud cases and a lack of cooperation from its operator in Shanghai were cited as reasons. Now, Rednote has more than 3 million active users in Taiwan, with many being young women who rely on the platform for beauty, fashion, and lifestyle content. Opposition politicians and analysts argue that the ban has backfired as Rednote becomes the most downloaded app following the announcement. Taipei have insisted that the ban is strictly about law enforcement, citing more than 1,700 fraud cases and financial losses of more than $7.9 million. China's Taiwan Affairs Office also hitting out on the ban, saying that the actions of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party will not stop Taiwan residents from learning about the ongoings in mainland China. And for more, let's bring in CNA senior correspondent Victoria Jen speaking to us live from Taipei. Vic, what is firstly behind Taiwan's decision to block Rednote, and how significant is this move given how so many people are reacting to it?
Well, Taiwan blocked Rednote for 1 year, mainly because of fraud and cybersecurity concerns. But the decision also comes at a time of heightened cross-strait tension, which makes the government more cautious about Chinese platforms. Police have linked the app to more than 1,700 scam cases since last year, with losses of about $8 million. Officials say Rednote refused to set up a legal representative in Taiwan or provide information needed for investigations. But a recent online survey shows more than 60% of Taiwanese are against the ban. Many say it's a violation of freedom of speech. Rednote currently has around 3 million users in Taiwan, and many of them, they rely on it for travel and food food tips, and fashion and beauty content, as well as online shopping. After the ban was announced, the app suddenly jumped to number 2 in both the App Store and Google Play. And the tutorial on how to bypass the block also spread quickly, showing strong pushback, especially from younger users. Supporters of the ban, however, say the ban is necessary to protect users and reduce risks from Chinese platforms at a time of strained cross-strait relations. So the debate goes beyond scams. It's also about how Taiwan balances security and digital freedom, especially when dealing with fast-growing apps from China.
So, Victoria, this strong pushback here, how then are the Taiwan's political parties reacting to it? And also, what does this controversy reveal about the wider debate on security as well as online freedom?
Well, the DPP is defending the decision as a safety measure, saying it's about reinforcing the law, not restricting speech. They point out that other major platforms like Facebook, Google, Line, and TikTok all comply with Taiwan's rules and have local representatives, but Rednote does not. Now, the opposition, especially the KMT, calls the ban an overreach. They argue it damages Taiwan's image as an open society and could set a precedent for blocking more apps in the future. Some lawmakers warn this approach looks similar to China's internet controls. And these reactions highlight a bigger tension Taiwan faces, and that is how to protect itself from cyber risks and potential influence from China while maintaining the open internet environment people value. Rednote has now become a test case for that balance, showing how difficult it is to manage national security concerns without disrupting daily life for millions of users. Vitaly?
Thanks for that report. CNA's senior correspondent Victoria Jin reporting to us live from Taipei. Right, we are going to go for a short break now, but coming up next on East Asia Tonight, South Korean chip giant SK hynix considering a U.S. stock market listing amid an AI-driven boom. Plus, worries of potential memory chip supply shortages wipe $14 billion off Nintendo's market value. Hello there. Great to have your company on East Asia Tonight. It is now time for business news with Roland Lim. Roland, today I believe South Korea's latest job figures are out, and walk us through some of the key takeaways.
Yeah, the job market holding well overall, but the numbers do hint of deeper structural issues, generational gaps, and even uneven growth across industries. Younger job seekers in South Korea continue to struggle to find employment. Latest official data show youth employment down for a 19th consecutive month in November. That's the longest streak of decline since the 2009 financial crisis. The youth employment rate fell to 44.3%. That's down 1.2 percentage points from the same month last year. Employment among those in their 40s, considered the economic backbone, were almost decreased by 9,000 due to factors including population decline. Overall, the number of employed persons increased. Now, most of the new jobs were concentrated in the age group 60 and above in the health and social welfare sectors. Now, for more on this, we're joined by CNA senior correspondent Lim Yun-suk, reporting to us live in Seoul. Yun-suk, thanks for being on the show. What are some of the main factors leading to this persistent slump in youth employment, and what is the government doing to alleviate the crisis?
Well, thanks, Roland. As you said, this unemployment issue here in South Korea is driven not just by one factor, but a combination of the structure, the demographic, and also the labor market forces. Now, it's an issue that has been unresolved here in South Korea for years now. First of all, there is definitely this mismatch between the jobs that the young people are looking for and want and the jobs that are actually out there. Now, most South Koreans graduate from a four-year university here, and when they graduate, most of them want stable full-time positions at large companies, so-called the chaebols, like Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and the others. But those companies have been cutting back in recent years, and according to a recent survey done this year, on 500 companies with 100 or more employees, 6 out of those 10 companies said that they had no plans to hire new graduates, while the others said they were uncertain too. The report is saying that the hiring level has reached its lowest level since 2021 due to the sluggish business environment. And, it was really those big companies, those chaebols, that traditionally hired large numbers of the new graduates every year here in South Korea, but many of them have stopped doing so. And also another trend is if they do hire, then many of them are hiring not new graduates, but those with experience now, which means that, competition is really tough, much tougher than before. And so those who want to still find jobs in those large companies, so chaebol, they're continuing to do so for many, many years. And these are people who are not even considering part-time jobs, which really pushes the unemployment numbers higher. But then, this doesn't mean that small companies are not hiring. But, their wages are much lower. Some are going to be like temporary contracts. And so these positions are not really attractive to the South Korean young workers. So they remain unemployed, hoping that something better will come up. So, there is definitely the supply-demand mismatch. We have the South Korean government rolling out new measures, several measures all the time, like giving subsidies, tax benefits for companies hiring them, or even, giving benefits to startups, or linking universities more closely with what the South Korean industry needs. But I think it really boils down to the same fundamental issue, is that there are jobs out there, but not the type and quality of jobs that the South Korean young generation wants. And so I think this is something, that is going to be a challenge for the South Korean government.
The numbers are worrying. I mean, we have a record number of Koreans in their 20s, 30s classified as resting rather than unemployed, even as you said, the jobless headline rate stays near full employment. So we've got some 700,000 in this resting category, and over 60% of new graduates, as you mentioned, barely job hunting at all. What's really driving this disconnect? I mean, how worried is the government about a generation that will no longer expect to find quality work?
Well, very worried. And this has become a big issue here in South Korea, because when you talk about the resting group of people, these are people who are not employed and they're not actively even looking for jobs. In a way, these are people who have given up hope that they can't find a job that they want. Now, apart from that supply and demand mismatch that I earlier spoke about, there's also this another factor, and that is how rapidly this adoption of AI across the industries here are changing the kind of skills demanded by the employers. Now, many of the jobs that those new graduates will hire for in the past are now being replaced by AI. Those basic entry-level positions that companies are now, being automated. So many of the traditional jobs that we used to have in the past are no longer available. And that's why, many of the young people here just feel that the traditional career paths are disappearing. And so now they've just been reluctant to search for jobs. Now, the South Korean government knows that this is a big issue, a social issue, a big challenge for the Korean government. And so part of its AI plans does focus on teaching the young people new skills, helping them understand AI better. But, it's simply not enough for the young generation here. Many experts are saying that the AI is changing and is going to change the workplace much faster than how, there are going to be new opportunities coming up. And so it's crucial that the South Korean government, urgently addresses this issue, trying to help bridge this gap between, otherwise it's going to be really crucial for the future of the young generation and South Korea's economy.
So thanks very much for adding more granularity to the jobs market in South Korea. That was CNA's Lim Yon-suk reporting live in Seoul. A South Korean chip giant SK Hynix weighing a possible U.S. listing as it races to keep up with red-hot demand for AI. The world's biggest memory chip maker by revenue is looking at ways to boost its value and to fund new investments in the high-end chip production area. In a regulatory filing, SK hynix says it is reviewing various measures to boost corporate value, including a potential U.S. stock market listing using its treasury shares, but stresses no decision has been made. The main supplier of high-bandwidth memory chips to NVIDIA, SK hynix, has seen its share price more than triple this year, outpacing rival Samsung Electronics. The move comes as it ramps up investment in new chip plants, with analysts saying a U.S. listing could lift its valuation and attract more global funds. South Korea's government, too, is pushing to make the country among the world's top 3 AI powers, alongside U.S. and China. SK hynix shares ending the day up 7.3% on the news. A SoftBank-backed Indian e-commerce platform, Meesho, soaring on its trading debut. The stock's trading at 172.56 rupees on the National Stock Exchange. That's up 56% from its IPO price of 111 rupees. The company raised some $603 million in an IPO last week, though the IPO was heavily oversubscribed, drawing in bids worth some $28 billion. Singapore's sovereign wealth fund, GIC, and funds managed by the State Bank of India, BlackRock, and Fidelity were among the largest institutional investors. The company is among the largest e-commerce platforms in the country, competing with Amazon, India, and Walmart-owned Flipkart. It joins a string of late-stage startups that have gone public in India this year, including Grow, Lenskart, and Urban Company, buoyed by domestic investors who have shrugged off the impact of 50% U.S. tariffs. India is now on track to register yet another record year for IPOs, even as foreign portfolio managers have pulled out billions of dollars from the wider local equity market. Meesho is said to be followed by a $1 billion-plus IPO next week, that of asset manager ICICI Prudential Asset Management Company. Shares of Nintendo slid as much as 4.7% today, hitting their lowest level since May. Now, stocks have now declined in 7 of 8 trading days in December, losing about $14 billion in market value. The drop comes as Nintendo faces rapidly rising memory costs, threatening to squeeze margins on its new Switch 2 console. According to market intelligence firm TrendForce, the price of the console's 12GB RAM memory chip is jumped some 41% this quarter, while NAND flash memory storage is nearly 8% more expensive. Concerns are rising on the demand front as well, with retailers offering early Black Friday deals on the Switch 2. Despite selling faster than any other game console in history, there is growing uncertainty over whether it can sustain that momentum, particularly with gamers beyond its loyal fan base. The Asian Development Bank has upgraded its growth forecast for the Asia-Pacific region, thanks in part to India's stronger-than-expected momentum. The Manila-based lender now expects the broader Asian economy to expand by 5.1% this year, higher than its September projection. The boost comes from resilient domestic demand and solid export performance across much of the region. But the ADB cautions that growth will cool to 4.6% next year as higher U.S. tariffs and softer global activity begin to bite. China's recovery remains under pressure while India continues to outperform, driven by robust private consumption. The ADB says growth in Southeast Asia is being held by an improved external environment and supportive government spending. Inflation across the region is expected to ease further to 1.6% this year. Still, the bank warns that renewed trade uncertainty and heightened financial market volatility remains key risks to the outlook. And you're up to date with the business news. Otelli.
Thanks so much for that, Roland. Okay, time now for another break, but coming up on East Asia Tonight, a discussion on Australia's social media age ban and if that could encourage other governments to make similar moves. Plus, Cambodia withdraws its entire delegation from the SEA Games amid border clashes with host nation Thailand. You're watching East Asia Tonight, and here are the headlines we're following. Washington, for the first time, openly criticizes Beijing for aiming radars at Japanese jets, calling the move destabilizing, or reaffirming that the U.S. stands firmly behind Japan. Now, Beijing lashes out at Taiwan's year-long ban on a popular Chinese app as undemocratic, even as user backlash sends a Rednote to the top of the download charts. And South Korea's youth employment down for a 19th straight month, fanning concerns that long-term joblessness is becoming a structural crisis. A world-first sweeping social media ban targeting youths has come into force in Australia, and it could set the ball rolling around the world. As many as 1 million accounts have been deactivated for under 16-year-olds to safeguard them from possible harm. Well, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese had this to say to young people in a video message.
Above all, make the most of the school holidays coming up, rather than spending it scrolling on your phone. Start a new sport, learn a new instrument, or read that book that has been sitting there on your shelf for some time. And importantly, spend quality time with your friends and your family, face to face. Have a great summer.
Now, 10 of the biggest platforms are on the banned list, and they include Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and Twitch. Now, the list could expand or change as new products emerge. Well, the law puts the onus on companies, and they will verify users' age through ID checking, face scanning, and data analysis. Flout the ban and face fines of up to $33 million. But there is no punishment for youths who manage to get around the new law. So, for example, using a VPN or a parent account. Other countries plan to follow. Malaysia, for instance, is expected to roll out its ban for under 16s on New Year's Day. New Zealand will introduce a bill next year. Denmark are looking at a ban for under 15s with flexibility for parents to give access. Now, Australia's ban faces challenges in more than one way. One survey found 75% of youths do not plan to stop using social media. On the legal front, 2 teenagers, backed by a digital rights group, are fighting the ban, saying it restricts their right to freedom of communication. The High Court will hear their case as early as February. Now, one of the young plaintiffs says that the ban will not work.
Even if all these kids got banned from these platforms and there was no way they could get on it, they're just going to move to a different platform and it's going to be worse. And they're just going to keep jumping to different platforms. So the whole ban doesn't make sense if it's not going to work.
Now, no social media ban in East Asia just yet, but governments have moved to limit young people's screen time. South Korea passed a bill in August banning the use of mobile phones and smart devices in schools. The vote was convincing. 70% of lawmakers were in favor. And the law comes into effect in March next year. Japan also has a phone ban in primary schools, but junior high students are allowed phones so that they can communicate in emergencies. One Japanese town, Toyoake, even introduced a rule this year to limit residents' screen time to just 2 hours a day outside of work and school. But there are no penalties. Now, as for China, phones have been banned in primary and secondary schools since 2021 to protect children's eyesight, improve concentration, and to tackle the problem of internet addiction. Now, lots to unpack here, so let's bring in Kim Yong-chan, Professor of Communication at Yonsei University. Well, thanks for joining us, Professor Kim. So we have seen there countries like China, South Korea, they're already tightening smartphone and screen use among the students. But do you see, based on what Australia has done, that's going to encourage the other governments in this region in East Asia to make bolder moves of their own?
Yeah, thank you for having me today. Yes, there will be a kind of domino effect, and there will be a kind of mutual influence among different countries adopting similar banning policies, especially in schools. But I think the banning smartphone and social media in school is kind of an emergency plan, but it cannot be a kind of normal policy that will have a real impact on children's lives and also the lives of their parents. I think we should really develop much a larger plan that will cover the plans to change the media and the social environment rather than just adopting restrictive the banning policy.
Right, and I want to talk about what the evidence actually says, because all these countries, they're all experimenting, trying out different things. But is there such a thing as the right balance? And also, what does the research tell us about what something like that would look like?
Yeah, still, we are waiting for, more academic studies about the effect of, the banning policies on, different kinds of, the outcomes of, the student, including their, academic performances and also, attention level and, distractiveness, and it's even, mental health. There are studies from some, Nordic countries and, and also other places showing that there is positive impact of the banning smartphones in schools on increasing student academic performances and also their level of attention during classes. But there's also other kinds of studies show opposite kinds of results. For example, one study that was published early this year in the Lancet. That has research by the University of Birmingham researchers. These researchers show that actually there's no effect at all of banning in school on children's academic performance and also mental health. Actually, this study was interesting because they found that total amount of time for social media and phone are actually similar between students who go to school that has banning policy and also and other students who go to school without banning policy.
So there isn't quite but all these experiments, you've got sort of like two sides of the coin, to juggle here. And we are certainly still waiting to see what comes out of this Australian ban. But in the meantime, I want to bring big tech directly into this. Do you think, this ban could perhaps nudge major platforms, to design better, safer products, business models, and obviously that questionable algorithm they have, rather than leaving them exposed to today's ad-driven systems, for instance?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that issue to here. So actually, all these things are not, people's problems. Actually, we are, really, talking about, platform companies' problems because they are mostly responsible for the kinds of media environments that we have today. But, banning is really targeting at, children and, parents and, teachers and school administrators. It's not really targeting at, platform companies that are much, way more responsible for kinds of, media environments that we have. So actually, we really need to develop, a mechanism to, demand, better, platform, designs that will, less, addictive to, not only children, but also to, grown-ups.
So, a practical one for policymakers who are watching this, and what sort of specific outcomes, would you advise all these other governments to tell them what should they be looking out for in terms of what comes out of this ban from Australia before deciding whether, they should be following its path or take a very different approach?
Well, yeah. So, as we saw in the screen, before, I think there will be, resistance, among, school children, and also, we can expect that, these kids will be smart enough to, find out, all different kinds of ways to, circumvent, banning, and also, I think there will be side effects of this, banning policy, but we'll see.
All right. Looks like Australia's move, will be the test case that the whole region will be looking out for. Well, thanks so very much for your insights, time and thoughts as well, Professor Kim from Yonsei University. Now, a dozen people have died in a fire that broke out in a residential building in southern China. The blaze occurred last night in a 4-story building at the city of Shantou in Guangdong province, burning through an area of 150 square meters. It was extinguished about 40 minutes later. An investigation into the cause is underway. Local authorities say that the structure had been self-built. The deaths come amid a campaign against fire hazards in high-rise buildings, launched in the aftermath of a deadly blaze in Hong Kong last month that killed 160 people. Now, authorities and professional bodies in Hong Kong are cracking down on businesses and individuals that may have been implicated in the city's deadliest blaze in decades. The South China Morning Post reports that the city's Urban Renewal Authority has removed a project consultant and a contractor from its building rehabilitation company registration scheme. It's a database typically used to find reliable services for building maintenance. The URA's handbook states that it can revoke registrations should a firm be the subject of complaints or, quote, negative mass media reports. Implicated individuals are also said to be under scrutiny from professional licensed bodies. The Chartered Institute of Building, for instance, has reportedly started a probe into the conduct of a member involved. Hong Kong Institute of Architects as well has launched related disciplinary proceedings. The fire at Wang Fuk Court killed at least 160 people and left some 5,000 residents homeless. 6 people remain uncontactable. Reports say a firefighter who was killed in the blaze will be given a funeral with highest honor. The ceremony is said to be taking place later this month. Ho Wai Ho will be laid to rest at Gallant Garden, a burial ground for civil servants who died in the line of duty. A 37-year-old served in the fire department for almost a decade. Coming up next on East Asia Tonight, a check on Japan's tourism sector as it deals with the spillover effects of a diplomatic spat between Tokyo and Beijing. Cambodia has pulled its entire delegation from the SEA Games that's being held in Thailand amid a border dispute with the host nation. In a letter to the head of the Games Federation, the Secretary General of Cambodia's National Olympic Committee withdrew the team due to serious concerns and requests from the families of athletes. He said it was for safety reasons and apologized for the early departure. This comes less than 12 hours after the Cambodian delegation attended the opening ceremony for the Games in Bangkok. For more, CNA's Alif Amshah looks at the withdrawal and its impact on the Games.
The Cambodian delegation was at the opening ceremony last night where we were, and all signs pointed to a positive participation of the Cambodian delegation at the SEA Games. But what we know so far is that the Cambodian delegation have pulled out entirely its 137-strong contingent comprising athletes and staff, and we've heard reports that they are leaving Bangkok for Phnom Penh tonight. In a statement addressed to the CEO of the SEA Games Federation, the team cited safety reasons amid escalating border tensions between the two countries, and it adds that due to serious concerns from the families of the athletes, they've requested for the athletes to come home from the Games. And it also says that in arriving at that decision to pull out from the Games, it does not take it lightly. It says sorry and apologizes for the inconvenience of this early departure and remain grateful for the understanding and the support that they've been given since they've arrived here in Thailand. Now the Games will only have 10 competing nations compared to the previous 11. Of course, Cambodia was set to take part in 12 sports across the 2 weeks. We don't have exact clarity on how it will affect the Games organizations. I'm right here at the International Broadcast Center. In fact, the Cambodian flag is still up. So I think things are still business as usual until we get further updates from the local organizing committee. As for the Games technical handbook, it states that if an event has fewer than 3 to 4 participating teams, and a medal might not be awarded. But due to this unique and unprecedented circumstances, I think that may change, but only time will tell.
Thousands of Hong Kong people living in the UK have handed a petition to the British government expressing concern about immigration reforms. Now, London is proposing a series of changes designed to bring down overall net migration. Hong Kong migrants in Britain under the British National Overseas Visa Scheme fear that it will make it harder to achieve permanent residency. Ollie Barrett reports for CNA from London.
More than 7,600 people have signed the petition handed in here at Downing Street. One of the organisers is Richard Choi, a councillor from Sutton to the south of London, where there is a large Hong Konger community.
They see that as a promise from the UK government. That was the reason they sell the access, they sell their property, sell their business and arrive here in the UK in the faith that the UK government will hold their promise. But right now it's in between. A lot of them, they are going to apply for indefinite leave to remain in a few months' time, maybe 3 months' time. So we're just almost at the end of this process, and the government is talking about the change in the policy, and a lot of them just feel disappointed, and they feel they don't trust, they cannot trust the government decision.
The petition raises a number of specific concerns. One is the proposed so-called economic contribution requirements, which campaigners say would disadvantage students, parents, carers, retirees and others. There's also a looming rise in English language requirements, which it's feared will affect tens of thousands of BNO holders who are approaching their 5-year settlement milestone in 2026. The petition also cites concern for young Hong Kong pro-democracy activists who've sought asylum in the UK. As part of its immigration reforms, the UK is increasing the standard qualifying period for permanent residents from 5 to 10 years. But the government has confirmed that people on the Hong Kong BNO visa will still qualify for settlement after 5 years if they meet the new earnings and language requirements. The government's immigration plans are out for consultation, which is due to conclude next year. So either way, there will be a period of uncertainty for thousands of Hong Kongers. Ollie Barrett for CNA at Downing Street in London.
Now, the diplomatic spat between Tokyo and Beijing has sparked fears that travel could be badly hit. But analysts say Japan's broad appeal across diverse markets and strong domestic tourism could reduce the impact, especially in less-known regions. CNA senior correspondent Michio Ishida has more.
现在小粉熊呢有想要问大家的问题，大家都从哪里来的呢？台湾。台湾から来た友達どのくらいいますか？台湾。那我们大家都从台湾人来的人请举手。あら。中国から来てる人。from 中国、China。中国から。
Kumamoto Prefecture's famous mascot Kumamon draws a crowd here at Kumamon Square, where he makes nearly daily appearances.
大体半分の方々が海外の方が多いです。台湾が圧倒的にやっぱり台湾から来られるお客様、あと、香港とか、あと中国本土の方。
Last month, China warned citizens to avoid visiting Japan after Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi suggested Tokyo could exercise its right to self-defense in the event of a Taiwan contingency. While Ms. Yonekura, who heads the firm running Kumamon Square, says there could be fewer visitors from mainland China as tensions rise, she expects total numbers to remain stable.
いろんな国から来られてますし、本当にどんどん増えてる国もありますので、あまり大きな影響があるとは思ってない。
Concerns have grown over how the spat could affect Japan's tourism sector. Travel agencies focusing on the Chinese market have reported cancellations of group tours. And in Osaka, its tourism board says some 20 hotels have seen half or more of their reservations from Chinese guests called off. Nomura Research Institute estimates that Japan's economy will contract by 0.29% if inbound tourism from China shrinks by 25% over a year. This is likely to impact not only the hospitality sector, but also transport and retail. Kumamoto, in Japan's southernmost main island of Kyushu, is known for its namesake castle. And like many parts of the country, it's benefited from a tourism boom.
2024年でいけば147万人ということで、もうこれまでで一番多かったコロナ前の2018年の 1.5 倍に増えています。台湾とか韓国が中心でありますけれども、中国人は14万人、約1割なんですね。
Direct flights link Kumamoto with South Korea and Taiwan, with more flights to and from Taiwan set to be added this month. In contrast, there are no direct routes to Hong Kong or mainland China. Flights were halted this year before the spat began, with carriers citing reasons such as sluggish demand.
他の県で見られるほどの大きな影響は今のところ熊本はないと思っています。
Omachi City in Japan's central Nagano prefecture is a hub for outdoor activities. Among foreign tourists, Taiwanese make up the largest group here, though I also met visitors from Shanghai who did not want to speak on camera. One hotel had hired a Chinese-speaking employee to boost its appeal, but it's now unsure of its prospect.
この地域自体がまだその中国本土のお客様というのがあまり多くない地域なんですね。ですので今現状としてはさほど影響は出ていない。今後日本の観光を大きく支えていくだけの人口がありますので、そういった部分ではやはり難しい問題かと思いますけれども。
China is among the biggest sources of foreign visitors to Japan nationwide, with Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka among the top destinations. But some analysts say Japan's ability to attract visitors from an increasingly diverse range of countries and regions softens the fallout.
China market is very important. However, its share in terms of numbers has been decreasing, accounting for 23% of visitors to Japan in the period from January to October this year, compared to 30% in 2019.
Mr. Shimizu also pointed out the significance of domestic tourism.
China nationals spend 1.7 trillion yen, accounting for 5% of total tourism expenditure in Japan. I'd like to point out that 76% of Japanese tourism expenditure is supported by Japanese nationals.
As the peak autumn season ends, Japan is poised to break last year's record of 36.87 million foreign arrivals for the full year, despite China's travel advisory. Visitor numbers to Japan crossed 35.5 million from January to October this year. Michio Ishida, CNA, Kumamoto, Japan.
Still ahead on Asia Tonight, here are some of the stories that we're also going to be covering. Investigations underway into Tuesday's deadly fire in Jakarta that left 22 people dead. Indonesian authorities say they will question business and building owners to determine if any negligence was involved. Russian President Vladimir Putin is hosting his Indonesian counterpart in Moscow. Mr. Putin himself confirmed they are ready to expand military and energy cooperation and discuss declining wheat supplies. All these stories and more on Asia Tonight, 8 p.m. Singapore, Hong Kong time, right here on CNA. And on that note, we wrap up this Wednesday's edition of East Asia Tonight. Don't forget your headlines anytime at cna.asia. And for more, you can always look us up on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for your company.